mystery after all. I wonder if we should just change our plans and travel somewhere else. I don't know. Sure. If you want to change your destination, let me pay for you. I caused you this trouble, so I can take the responsibility, offered Ariana. She didn't know if those Brazilian men would continue to make things difficult for the two girls, but it didn't hurt to be careful. As a result, if the two girls wanted to change their flight, Ariana would pay for their plane tickets. No, we didn't mean that. You stood up for us, so we're very grateful. We just liked those men from Brazil as well, and we're glad you taught them a lesson. If we need to change our tickets, we'll pay for it on our own, said the girl at once. She was very reasonable, so she wouldn't place the blame on Ariana. Then will you go to Rio de Janeiro, or do you want to go somewhere else? Asked Ariana. The two girls exchanged glances, asking for the other's opinion. In the end, they decided not to go to Brazil. As for their new destination, they already had other choices, in addition to Rio de Janeiro, so it wasn't a difficult decision for them to make. We'll fly to Cuba instead, decided one of the girls. Great, her friend agreed. Therefore, they decided to go to Cuba. You should go change your tickets now, suggested Ariana. All right, said the two girls. Then they immediately went to the reception desk, and Ariana followed. Although they didn't ask her to pay the fee for them, she would. When the two girls saw Ariana following them, they understood her intention. You don't need to go with us. We can deal with it, said one of them. It's fine. I'll just go with you and have a look, replied Ariana with a smile. No, you really don't need to go with us. We can handle it, insisted the girl. I'll just go over and have a look, Ariana repeated. The two girls didn't believe her, but Ariana insisted, so they said nothing further. If Ariana wanted to go to the reception desk, they couldn't stop her. Therefore, she followed the two girls there and watched as they finished the formalities. When they went to pay for their new tickets, Ariana did it before them. No matter how they tried to stop her, she didn't take a step back. In the end, the two girls thanked Ariana again. You were too kind. Thank you so much. Happy travels. Take care and be safe, Ariana told them. We will. Thank you again, said the girls. Ariana gave them a smile, then turned around and walked away. When she was gone, an employee at the reception desk asked them with excitement, Hey, are you friends with Miss Young? Hearing that, the two girls were confused. No, who is that? One of them asked. However, the excitement on the employee's face gave them the impression that the girl who helps them out wasn't ordinary. Accordingly, they were curious about her identity. You look so excited. Do you know who she is? Asked the girl. Of course, she's so popular. But I can't tell you much about her right now. You can search for her information on the internet. Her name is Ariana Young, revealed the receptionist. She couldn't chat with them for long, otherwise, her colleagues might tell on her, which would affect her job. Without delay, the two girls searched for information about Ariana online. After reading news articles about her, they were both astonished. To their surprise, Ariana was such an important figure. She hadn't just helped them out, she also paid the fee for changing their tickets. Wow, they had a stroke of luck today. It was a shame that they failed to recognize her. I didn't know about her at all. It seems I should catch up with the hot topics online more often, one of the girls sighed. Wow, we were so lucky today. I wish I had known her identity earlier. We could have asked to take photos with her, said her friend. Oh my God, I'm too excited. I'm going to share the exciting news on my Instagram story, squealed the girl. Me too, her friend agreed. As they said that, they opened up their Instagram accounts and typed furiously. They both made posts about how they had met Ariana Young by coincidence today, but they didn't recognize her. It started when they had an argument with several men, but Ariana helped them out and even paid the fee for changing their plane tickets. Once they posted it, they received hundreds of such likes. Many of their friends were jealous of them. Normally, only a few people would like their posts, so it proved that Ariana indeed had great influence. When Ariana got back to the gate, it was time for them to board the flight 2 Brazilian men at the airport, so they must have decided to get revenge here, explained Ariana. Hearing that, Gerald nodded. In order to stop them from finding out about our plan, we must get rid of them as quickly as possible. We can't let them follow us all the way, Ariana reminded him. No problem, acknowledged Gerald, not speeding up. I'll pull over as soon as we're in a remote area. Before they found a suitable place, Ariana asked about Henry. Oh, can you tell me more about the situation Henry is in? She requested. When she asked about him, she looked very serious. We were assigned to carry out a task involving mutants. We found some of them in the United States, so Henry wanted to find their lair and completely destroy it, so we followed them here. Henry didn't want all of us to be exposed, so he followed the mutants by himself. He told us to wait in Rio de Janeiro and said that if you didn't contact us in 5 days, we should report it to the general and call you. We all believed in Henry's abilities, so we decided to wait for a day or two longer. Now it has been over a week, and Henry still hasn't contacted us, so we called General Russell, explained Gerald. Do you know which direction Henry went? Inquired Ariana. We only know that he went to the ocean at the Gamboa Pier, but we don't know which direction he went afterward. We think that if the other party went to the secret base, then it's likely to be at the bottom of the sea or on an island. We also checked the map, and there are many islands around. Some are big and some are small, but not all islands are marked on the map, and not all islands can be visited, Gerald explained. Ariana nodded. Generally, bases are either deep in the mountains, on islands, or at the bottom of the sea. Currently, we don't know where Henry is, so we can only look for the base along the Atlantic coast. Just leave it to me, Ezekiel and Ava. Since it's nighttime, it's the ideal time for action. So you can take us to the Atlantic coast, she instructed, without asking Ezekiel and Ava's opinion. She directly made the decision on her own, because she knew that the others would agree with her. Sure, said Gerald, listening carefully. The Red Flame had no idea how to find and help Henry, so they would follow whatever Ariana thought they should do. If their enemies were normal people, they could do it on their own, but they were going to be facing ninjas and mutants. Do you have a map? Let me have a look, said Ariana. Yeah, I have several with me. They're in the glove box in front of the front passenger seat, replied Gerald. Ava was sitting in the front passenger seat, so she immediately took out 3 maps and handed them to Ariana and Ezekiel. After they got the maps, they found the pier that Gerald told them about and started to look at the surrounding landmarks from the pier. From the airport to the city center of Rio de Janeiro, there were many small remote villages around. In order to avoid local citizens and get rid of the men who were following behind them, they drove towards a narrow path. Those men were also waiting for a chance to take action, so after Ariana took the narrow path, they felt it was a chance to attack. When they got to a remote place, and there were no cars around them, Ariana asked Gerald to stop the car. However, the people who were following them didn't think too much about it. They didn't even think that they had been discovered, and had no idea that Ariana deliberately stopped to deal with them. Instead, they thought that her car might have broken down, causing her to stop. After the car stopped, Ariana got out. She pretended as if she was going to fix it, so she bent down and examined the car. Because she could handle it alone, the others stayed in the car. The next moment, the men's car stopped close to them, other people, Ariana pointed out. She didn't really care about that. She simply wanted to joke with Gerald. Fine, you win, Gerald laughed. 40 minutes later, Ariana and the others arrived at Gamboa Pier, on the edge of the Atlantic Ocean. It was a relatively remote wharf that had been abandoned for many years. There were no people or houses around, so it was safe to sail from there. After reaching the wharf, Gerald suddenly remembered an important question. Oh, there is no boat. How will you get to the destination? He asked. We have our own way. You can leave after we get out of the car. We'll let you know if anything happens, instructed Ariana. Although Gerald was aware they had superpowers, he didn't know their skills too clearly, so they didn't want him to watch them. All right, Gerald acknowledged, and didn't ask further. After Ariana and the others got out of the car, he immediately drove away. Even though he was curious to know how they would manage to get to the destination, he understood what he shouldn't ask about. He had no intention of taking a peek. They had superpowers, so he was confident they could think of a good way. After Gerald left, Ariana, Ava, and Ezekiel talked about what they should do. There were 3 of them, so they decided to split up and take action in 3 directions. If Henry was really on a nearby island, it shouldn't be difficult for them to find him. As long as they were within 50 yards of each other, they could sense each other's aura. Therefore, they didn't need to wait until they saw him before they actually found him. Ezekiel and Ava could fly around with their swords, so they could search in the air. Ariana couldn't do that, but she had a sea monster, which could swim freely in the water, so she would search in the sea. They didn't know whether Henry was in a base on an island or in the ocean, so they needed to search everywhere. After coming to an agreement, they took action. Ariana let Ivory out, then got into the water. Once she was in the water, she used her magical power to make a barrier to protect herself. two are ninjas, explained Henry. So what do you plan to do? Asked Ezekiel. I led them here on purpose. I was just about to kill them when I saw you. Because I don't know how many mutants and ninjas there are on this island, I can't take action and intrude into their lab right now. I just planned to kill as many as possible. I've killed 5 mutants and 5 ninjas over the past few days. The leaders found out that someone was killing them, so they sent out some people to search for me. The security has also been tightened. I can't do anything else for the time being, explained Henry. It had been over a week, but Henry had only been on the small island for 3 days. It was their base where the lab was located. After 2 days of observation and investigation there, Henry also found out that this base was related to a major family in the capital of Brazil. This family, like the 4 major families in Los Angeles, had extremely powerful influence and a high status. They also had the ambition to seize power, and these ninjas and mutants could back them. In that case, let's get rid of them first. Then we'll go to meet your mother and Ariana. We can talk about other things when we meet them, Ezekiel proposed. Since he found Henry, he had to tell Ava and Ariana as soon as possible, so that they could stop looking for him themselves. All right, agreed Henry. He badly wanted to see Ava and Ariana as well. Shortly after he began this task, he felt that he might not be able to handle it alone, and that he would need help. In order to get more useful information, he conducted surveillance of the mutants and ninjas, and he didn't contact Ariana and Ava right away. Because of that, he felt guilty that they were worried about his safety. Moving quietly, Ezekiel and Henry climbed up the cliff and found those mutants and ninjas. Because mutants couldn't think for themselves and needed ninjas to control them, they divided into 2 groups to look for Henry. That made it easy for Henry and Ezekiel to fight against them separately. The ninjas weren't weak, but they were still no match for Ezekiel and Henry. They just needed a longer amount of time to deal with the mutants, because mutants can recover from injuries in seconds. Every time they injured a mutant, it would heal itself and be fine again. Ezekiel didn't kill the mutant he was fighting right away, because he wanted to study more about what mutants could do. Therefore, he used a little magical energy to hit the mutant at first. The mutant backed up a few steps, but wasn't injured. Then, he used greater magical energy and slightly injured the mutant. However, within seconds, the injury healed. Although Ezekiel was aware that mutants had strong defensive abilities and could heal themselves quickly, he was still amazed when he witnessed it. He had to admit that mutants were indeed better than immortals at self-healing ability, but mutants were much weaker than immortals when they wanted to attack. As for ninjas, they were only about as strong as immortals in the heartbeat stage, so Ezekiel easily defeated them. Even Henry could also easily beat them. They only spent a bit longer dealing with the mutants. All in all, the fight was over within 10 minutes. Actually, Ezekiel spent 7 minutes testing the mutant skills. Otherwise, he could have killed it within a much shorter time. It took Henry longer than Ezekiel to defeat his mutant, but he finished quickly too. After killing them, Henry and Ezekiel split up to find Ava and Ariana. Ezekiel went to find Ava, while Henry went to find Ariana. They agreed to come back and meet by the edge of the cliff. Knowing that Ariana was searching for him in the ocean, Henry let his sea monster, Flint, out of his infinite pouch. He hopped on Flint's back and started off right away. It wasn't easy to find a person in the water, so Henry still hadn't found Ariana after Ezekiel found Ava an hour later. Ava was extremely relieved when Ezekiel let her know that Henry was fine. Nearly 2 hours later, Henry finally saw Ariana, who nearly burst into tears of relief when she saw that her man was safe. Afterwards, she followed him to meet Ezekiel and Ava. Before long, they all met up together. Because there wasn't any cell phone signal, they couldn't share the good news with Gerald and the others. They could only go back after solving the problem. The sun was rising by the time they met up. It had been an entire night, and even though they weren't tired, they decided to rest for a while and eat food while they discussed their next steps. As for the stuff they needed, there was a lot in Ariana's telepathic eye space and Ezekiel's infinite pouch. When they were resting, Henry explained the situation to them. This island isn't very big, but it's not too small either. The laboratory is in the center of the island. Its entrance is relatively unobtrusive, and it looks like a cave, but I've never entered it, so I don't know the specific situation inside. I just used my senses to look into it. After entering the cave, there is an elevator that goes down, so the laboratory must be underground, he said. After we get there, I'll use my jade eyes to look in first. Then we can talk about our plan, suggested Ariana. Because mutants and ninjas from Brazil wouldn't stop causing trouble in the United States, they decided to teach them a lesson by destroying the lab, so they couldn't continue to do such bad things. No matter who dared to threaten their country's safety, they wouldn't hesitate to fight back. Everyone agreed with Ariana, since they had the same idea. After filling their stomachs, they disguised themselves. They were going to do illegal things, so they couldn't show their real faces. Henry had observed the surroundings, so he knew that there were some surveillance cameras around the island. If they didn't disguise themselves, they could be easily caught. Once the news went out, they would be in serious trouble. Even though they could damage the surveillance cameras with their magical energy, they still needed to be careful. After disguising themselves, Ezekiel took Ariana, and Ava took Henry to the lab on their flying swords. Before they found out more useful information, they didn't want to be seen, so they paid special attention to see whether there were people around as they flew. As soon as they reached the area with surveillance cameras, they stopped flying on the swords, and instead walked further. Because there had been an intruder on the island, a dangerous intruder who killed many mutants and ninjas, the organization that created the mutants was in a panic. Their leader was also furious. Unfortunately, no matter how many ninjas and mutants they sent to find the intruder, they never came back. This was a major issue, so the senior managers of the organization congregated for an emergency meeting. They were the senior management, and some of them were ninjas themselves, but there was still a leader above all of them. He didn't visit the island, however, and instead, he stayed in Rio de Janeiro. When they spoke about the solution, they had the idea of moving the mutants to another location, but it wasn't realistic. They were already exposed, and it was clear the intruder could easily kill ninjas and mutants, which proved that they were facing a strong enemy. As a result, they were afraid the intruder might ambush them and cause even greater damage if they tried to move. On the other hand, if they stayed here, they might still save some of the mutants. After the leader of the organization learned about the news, he was suspicious of his family's political enemies. He thought that the person who attacked his lab could also be a ninja or a mutant. After all, he wasn't the only one who could make mutants. It was true that there were multiple organizations that created mutants in Brazil, and there were many other ninjas in other organizations too. Henry and the others were aware of that, but the other organizations hadn't hurt their country's interests, so they didn't care much about them. Even though the leader of this organization was suspicious of his family's political enemies, he couldn't investigate them right away, because it could easily cause trouble. If he was wrong, his secrets would be exposed. Therefore, he decided to only conduct an investigation after catching the intruder. However, they had searched for 2 days, but still couldn't find the intruder, which made him furious. Once Henry and the others arrived at the area that had surveillance cameras, they used their magical energy to destroy them. Because the security guard was watching the surveillance videos all the time, he noticed it once they were broken, but he couldn't see anyone, so he thought that the cameras broke on their own. However, in the following moments, all the surveillance cameras started breaking, one after the other, which alerted the security guard. Without delay, he reported it to the senior management. After the senior management heard that, they felt it wasn't likely that there was simply a problem with the surveillance cameras. It couldn't be a coincidence. Therefore, they thought of the strange intruder and wondered if he was responsible for the cameras malfunctioning. However, they couldn't see anyone from the surveillance videos, which was strange. They were all ninjas, and they made mutants, which were beyond normal people's knowledge, so they knew there had to be other people who had superpowers in this world. For example, They heard that there were masters in certain countries who could run on the walls and even fly. There might be people with other special skills too, but they knew barely anything about them. Therefore, they weren't sure which country the intruder came from. Because their ninjas and mutants went to do tasks in many foreign countries recently, it could have attracted the attention of their enemies in different places. Of course, it could also have been done by their leader's enemies from Brazil. Either way, they could be sure that the intruder wasn't a mutant, because a mutant could only take action under the control of other people. A mutant couldn't damage the surveillance cameras alone. Because the surveillance cameras broke so quickly, the senior management immediately sent a group of ninjas to look outside. As a result, when Henry and the others reached the entrance of the lab, they saw over a dozen ninjas looking around. There were also 2 ninjas and 2 mutants guarding at the door. It didn't seem like much, but there was a team of ninjas, which was horrifying. After all, ninjas weren't ordinary people. If an organization had 30 ninjas at its disposal, it would be considered a very strong organization. In fact, an organization with 30 ninjas could be as powerful as a killer organization made of over 100 professional assassins. Moreover, there were also mutants in the same organization, and there seemed to be many of them. Therefore, an organization like that could be stronger than any killer organization. After all, humans weren't comparable to ninjas and mutants. Precisely because of that, Henry could still have ended up in danger, even though he was a high-level immortal and had a sea monster's help. Luckily, Ezekiel, Ariana, and Ava came to help him, which made it much easier. Ariana and the others didn't go closer to the entrance of the lab right away, in case they were noticed. Ninjas had acute senses and could sense other people from within 20 yards. Ariana and the others immediately held their breath, not making any noise, so that they wouldn't be sensed until they were at least 10 yards away. For their safety, they kept a longer distance and stopped 15 yards away. The next moment, Ariana used her jade eyes to see what was happening down in the lab. Through the door, there was an elevator that led to a lab, which was about 30 feet underground. However, because of the distance and obstacles, Ariana couldn't see it clearly. She could just roughly see that there were a lot of people inside. She told Henry and the others what she saw. Then they discussed how to act. What else is there to think about? Let's just attack right now, Ezekiel proposed, thinking that it wouldn't be hard to defeat their enemies. After some thought, the others agreed with him. It might be difficult for them to do it alone, but with the 4 of them together, especially with Master Ezekiel, they had nothing to worry about. In addition, they also had 2 sea monsters, a mutant fox, and a tree spirit, but they didn't want to make their helpers known unless they were left with no choice. After that, they decided to start the fight right away. The ninjas were searching and patrolling, but they didn't know that their enemies were getting close to them. As a result, when Ariana and the others suddenly appeared beside them, they were startled. They were surprised that they could hide so well, and that they hadn't seen them at all. However, without delay, they fought back. Because the dozen or so ninjas were scattered, not all of them attacked Henry and the others at the same time. Therefore, due to the disparity in strength, Henry and the others quickly killed them. Within only 10 minutes, about a dozen ninjas were dead. The surveillance cameras in that area weren't destroyed, so when Henry and the others appeared on the screens, the senior management, who was watching the footage live, saw them and was shocked by their skills. Who were they? How could they be so strong? Although they knew the intruder had killed many ninjas and mutants during the past 2 days, they were still shocked when they witnessed it with their own eyes. The intruder's abilities were far beyond their expectations. The ninjas, who could kill at least 50 professional killers, were easily killed by 4 people within only 10 minutes. Who are they? Wondered one of the senior managers. He didn't expect an answer, because no one knew who they were. They were aware of the existence of people with superpowers in many countries, but they had never met them personally, so they had no idea about their skills. It was clear they were wearing disguises. Therefore, they couldn't tell which country their enemies came from. No idea. It looks like they disguised themselves very well. We can't see their real faces, another manager pointed out. Yeah, they're too strong for our forces. What should we do now? Cried a third manager. Do we need to send backup? Someone asked. I don't think it's necessary. The elevator needs a fingerprint and password to get in. They can't get down here, one of the managers replied. Although he said that, after seeing their enemy's abilities, he wasn't sure whether the elevator could stop them. At any rate, they couldn't go out at this time, so they could only wait and see. I'm afraid the elevator won't be able to stop them, someone muttered, voicing the other manager's worries. The elevator was made of excellent material and was invulnerable to swords and guns, but it wasn't invincible. Besides, their enemies weren't ordinary people. What if they had special abilities that they could use to destroy the elevator? After killing the ninjas, Ariana and the others went to the entrance of the lab. 2 ninjas were guarding the door, along with 2